Okay, so have you heard about this DeepSeek R1? People are comparing it to the launch of Sputnik.
Sputnik? Wow. That's a pretty serious comparison.
I know, right? So today, we're going to deep dive into why everyone's making such a big deal about this new AI. We'll be focusing on this YouTube video by Dave Plummer, who seems to know what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, I saw that video. He's a retired Microsoft engineer, right?
That's the one. And get this, he actually got DeepSeek R1 running on a Raspberry Pi.
Wait, hold on. He got cutting-edge AI working on a what?
A Raspberry Pi, you know those tiny computers that cost like 30 bucks?
No way, that's insane.
I know, right? So let's start with the basics. What exactly is DeepSeek R1 and what makes it so different from all the other AI stuff out there?
Well, it's basically an open source AI language model. It was developed in China, and that open source part is important, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Okay, so open source, does that mean anyone can just use it?
Pretty much, yeah. The code is freely available. But the really crazy part is how they built it and how they managed to make something this powerful without spending a ton of money.
Yeah, in the video, Dave kept mentioning this whole distilled language model thing. I gotta be honest, it went a little over my head.
It is pretty technical.
Huh.
But the basic idea is that DeepSeek R1 learns by observing the outputs of other larger AI models, kind of like how an apprentice learns from a master craftsman.
So instead of trying to build everything from scratch, they're basically training DeepSeek R1 by showing it how the best of the best AIs respond to different things.
You got it. And that's how they're achieving results that are comparable to models from companies like Google and OpenAI, but with way less computational power.
It's like they figured out a shortcut to AI brilliance.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm.
And because of this approach, they were able to develop DeepSeek R1 for a fraction of the cost. Dave mentioned it was something like $6 million. That's practically nothing compared to what some of those tech giants are spending.
6 million. It's crazy to think that you can develop cutting-edge AI for less than the cost of a fancy apartment in New York City.
Right. It really shakes things up. If you don't need billions of dollars and massive data centers to create powerful AI, it opens up the field to a lot more players.
So it's not just about one company or one country controlling everything anymore.
Exactly. But before we get too deep into the implications of all that, I want to go back to that whole learning by observing thing. How does that actually work? How do you train an AI just by showing it what other AIs do?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. It sounds kind of like cheating.
It's not cheating, it's clever.
Yeah.
Basically, they feed DeepSeek R1 a massive data set of questions and scenarios and then show it the responses that were generated by those larger AI models.
So it's like giving the AI a bunch of practice problems and then showing it the answer key.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But DeepSeek R1 isn't just memorizing answers, it's analyzing the responses, looking for patterns, trying to understand the logic and reasoning behind them.
So it's learning to think like those bigger AIs, but without needing all their fancy hardware and algorithms.
That's the gist of it. And remember that whole open source thing we talked about? Well, that means anyone can examine DeepSeek R1's code and potentially identify any biases or flaws in the system, which is huge in terms of transparency and accountability.
So instead of just trusting a company's word that their AI is fair and unbiased, we can actually look under the hood and see for ourselves.
Exactly. And that's just one of the reasons why people are calling this a potential Sputnik moment. It's not just about a new piece of technology. It's about a fundamental shift in the way AI is developed and accessed.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is such a big deal. So we've got the super efficient AI that learns from the best, doesn't cost a fortune, and is open for anyone to examine and modify. But what does that actually mean for the average person? What are the real-world implications of all this?
Well, for starters, it could mean a lot more competition in the AI market. And more competition usually means better products and lower prices for consumers.
So it's like the wild west of AI. Suddenly anyone can stake a claim.
In a way, yeah. It also has huge implications for industries that have traditionally relied on those big tech companies for their AI solutions.
Like what kind of industries?
Well, think about healthcare, education, finance, manufacturing, pretty much any industry you can think of. Instead of having to pay those big companies exorbitant fees for access to their AI, businesses could potentially develop their own custom AI tailored to their specific needs.
Now that you mention it, in the video, Dave did run DeepSeek R1 on his own computer, right?
Yeah, he showed it running on a pretty powerful PC, a MacBook Pro, and even that Raspberry Pi.
So it's not just a theoretical thing. People are actually using it right now on their own devices.
That's the exciting part, and that's just scratching the surface. We'll dive deeper into the potential applications of DeepSeek R1 in part 2, but first.
That's first.
But first, I want to talk about this SCUP angle that Dave brought up. The idea that DeepSeek R1 might be part of a much bigger plan.
Oh, yeah, that was intriguing. You mean like a geopolitical strategy?
Exactly. Some experts believe that China's investment in DeepSeek R1 is more strategic than it appears. They argue that China might be deliberately trying to disrupt the AI status quo and challenge America's dominance in the field.
So it's like a technological power play, like a way of saying, hey, world, look at what we can do.
You got it. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. There's so much more to unpack here.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. I can't wait to dive into all this.
Me too. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all unfolds.
So, okay, you've got me thinking about all this democratization of AI stuff we were talking about. It sounds cool, but like, what does that actually look like in the real world? Like for someone like me who, isn't exactly a tech whiz.
Right. It's a pretty big concept.
Yeah.
It's tough to say for sure how it's going to play out, but I think we can look at some potential applications to get a better idea.
Okay, so what are we talking about specifically? What could someone actually use DeepSeek R1 for?
Well, think about anything that involves, understanding language or generating text, writing emails, translating documents, summarizing long articles, maybe even composing music or writing poetry.
Whoa, hold on. AI writing poetry, is that really a thing?
It's definitely getting there.
Yeah.
DeepSeek R1 can actually produce some pretty creative stuff, but it all comes back to that data it's trained on.
Right, because if the AI is only learning from, biased or inaccurate information, then its output isn't going to be very good either.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest advantages of open source AI. It allows for more transparency and collaboration, potentially leading to models trained on more diverse and representative data.
So instead of relying on one company's data set, which might have all sorts of blind spots, you could have a whole community of people contributing to make the AI smarter and fairer.
That's the idea. It's not just about affordability. It's about making AI more inclusive and representative of different perspectives.
I like that. Okay, so besides writing and translating, what else can we do with this DeepSeek thing?
Oh, there's so much potential. One area that I find particularly fascinating is personalized AI.
Personalized AI. That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. Imagine having an AI assistant that truly understands your individual needs and preferences.
So, like, it would know I love 80s music and suggest new bands I might like, or help me plan a vacation based on my, travel style.
Exactly. And because DeepSeek R1 is so efficient, it could potentially run locally on your own devices. You wouldn't have to send all your personal data to some giant tech company.
So it's like having a custom-made AI just for me. That's insane.
And think about the implications for other industries. Healthcare education. You could have AI tutors that adapt to each student's learning style, or virtual medical assistants that give personalized health advice.
Okay, now I'm really seeing the possibilities here. But wouldn't that much personalization, like, create echo chambers or something?
That's a valid concern, and it's why we need to have these conversations about the potential downsides of this technology, especially one as powerful as AI.
Right, it's not all sunshine and roses. We got to think about the risks, too.
Absolutely. And that's another area where open source AI can help. By making the code and training data accessible, it allows for more scrutiny and accountability.
So if someone spots a bias in the AI, they can flag it and potentially help fix it.
Exactly. It's a much more collaborative approach to AI development, where everyone has a stake in ensuring that it benefits society as a whole.
Okay, that makes sense. But with all this talk of smaller, more efficient AI, what happens to the big tech companies? Can they even keep up?
That's a great question. And it's something that the developers of DeepSeek are definitely thinking about. One strategy is to focus on those niche applications where smaller models can really shine.
So not trying to do everything, but finding those specific tasks where DeepSeek R1 has an edge.
Right. Another strategy is to leverage that open source community, inviting developers from all over the world to contribute and make the AI even better.
So it's like a global brain trust all working together to push the limits of AI.
Exactly. And it's a completely different model from the kind of closed-off development we've seen from some of the big tech companies.